but I'll start with on the top left of my screen, we have Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace is a star AMTA competitor from South Carolina. He won this play-in tournament 2 years ago, so he knows what to look for. I see Michaelan Struble. She's a 3L at UCLA. She's a national championship winning Battle of the Experts at Drexel last fall and the National Trial League this January, where she was named Best Advocate. She'll also be a public defender when she graduates. I don't see Jade Magana, but Jade is a 3L at UCLA, one of the jurors today. She twice she won awards for best closing argument in fields of 100 competitors. She's going to be a public defender as well when she graduates next month. And your presiding judge is Ambiga Nugali. Ambiga is a 2L at UCLA and the winner of the online national championship this spring. So you're in good hands with them. Ambiga, I'm going to turn it over to you to take over.
All right, thank you, Jess. Hi, everybody. So why don't we go ahead and call this case to order? Do we have appearances from the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor. Can Your Honor hear me okay?
I can hear you. I don't think I can see you.
Give me 1 second, Your Honor.
Sure.
Can Your Honor see me now?
I can. You got a little bit of an echo going on, though. I think you might have fixed it. Okay. I can't hear you at all. I'm sorry.
Can Your Honor hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, the technology is a little bit difficult to navigate.
Not a problem. I remember how Zoom works. It can be tough. Don't worry.
My name's Anthony Hill. I'll be representing the plaintiff today.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Can you see and hear me okay?
I can.
Good morning. My name is Barrett Tefft, and I'll be representing the defendant in today's case, First City, and will be joined at counsel table by the mayor of First City, Chris Weems.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Do we have any housekeeping matters to attend to?
Your Honor, it's our understanding all housekeeping matters have already been addressed, but I would also like to make a point of order. We'll also be joined at counsel table by Dr. Schott, so she won't be sequestered in this trial.
All right. That's understood. Thank you.
Your Honor, we did have one very brief substantive matter. We were wondering if we could go ahead and enter a photograph of the decedent, Dorothy Cacciapoli, into evidence so we could use it during opening statements.
Defense, any objection from you?
We have no objection to this, Your Honor.
It will be admitted, and you can use that during openings then.
Yes, Your Honor. With that, we're ready to proceed into opening statements.
All right. I will turn my camera off. I'll leave it to you. Let's hear openings.
They were warned about sharks, but they still let her swim. This case starts on June 25th, 2022. On First City Beach, there's a body that watches up on the beach. The mayor, he catches word of it, so he hires experts to go out there and try and determine how this young lady died. You'll learn today that those experts told the mayor that she could have died because of a shark attack, that he needed to close those beaches until they could confirm it for certain. The mayor says it would be bad for business. So he leaves those beaches open, and just 2 days later, a little boy gets eaten by a shark on his beach. You'd think at this point he'd start to listen to the experts to try and go and search for more sharks. And when that expert, she tells the mayor that there still could be a great white out there, that they had to shut the beach down so they could catch it. The mayor didn't listen. He says July 4th is the busiest day in the city for business, so he needed that beach to be open. And then, this case, it gets to July 4th. You'll learn about this girl, Dorothy Caciopoli. She gets in the car to go to First City Beach with her parents. She's looking forward to building sandcastles, to having her feet in the water. And that's what she does when she gets to the beach. She's playing in the beach water with her mother. And then she turns around and she sees the fin of a great white shark. She tries to swim away as fast as she can. She's kicking her legs as fast as possible. But she can't outswim a shark. That shark, it caught Dorothy. And it took a bite out of her torso so big that she bled to death. Dorothy died that day because the mayor, the city, they were warned about sharks, but they still let her swim. And that, members of the jury, is why we've brought forward this lawsuit today. To prevail in it, we're going to have to show you a couple of things by a preponderance of the evidence, which means just a little bit more likely than not. You could be 50% sure and a feather can tip the scale, just a little bit more. We have to show you by that standard 3 very simple things. The waters were dangerous. The city knew that. And those dangerous waters, the shark inside of it, killed Dorothy. And members of the jury, to help you see that the defendant is liable, we'll ask you to focus on 3 very simple facts. First, what the city knew. Second, how they reacted. And third, why they reacted the way they did. Well, let's start with that first fact, what the city knew. Today you'll hear from an oceanographer, an expert in marine biology and studying the ocean. She's going to take that stand and tell you that she warned the mayor moments before Dorothy died that there could still be a great white shark in that water. And she warned the mayor to close down the beaches. So this will lead us to that second fact, how the city reacted. The evidence will show that once the mayor found out those waters could still be infested with sharks, he didn't shut the beach down. He didn't hire a fisherman to go and catch it. He left the beach open. He let the people swim even though he was warned about sharks. And that'll lead us to the third fact, why the city reacted the way that they did. Perhaps the most tragic evidence that you'll get to hear about in this case is that the mayor left the city open even though he knew it was unsafe for money. He's going to take that stand and admit that the city being wealthy, the city making profits on July 4th, that took priority over the protection of their citizens. It was in that moment that he became responsible for her death. It was in that moment that he put dollars over Dorothy. He let her swim even though he was warned about sharks. That's why at the end of this trial, I'm going to come right back before you. I'm going to ask that you review the evidence and reach the only decision consistent with it. I'll ask that you find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Thank you, plaintiff. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, Mr. Hill and members of the jury, it looked like the shark had been caught. Mr. Hill just came before you and he told you a story. But it's a story that started partway through. To truly understand the facts in today's case, we need to go back to the beginning. In today's trial, you'll hear about a small town called First City. It has about 4,000 local residents, and it's a tourist hotspot. Today, you'll hear prior to June 2022, in the entire history of this town, they had never experienced a single shark attack until tragedy struck in June of 2022. And it's because they've never experienced a shark attack before that on July 1st, just days after this attack, as the mayor, Chris Weems, looks at a dead and captured tiger shark on his deck, he thinks to himself, the problem is solved. And only after he believes the killer shark was captured did he then reopen the beach. Members of the jury, the plaintiff told you a story, but they didn't tell you that it looked like the shark had been caught. Now, we're in court here today because of an undeniable tragedy. It's a tragedy that a little girl lost her life, but it's a tragedy caused not by the actions of this city, but by the unforeseeable actions of nature. Now, members of the jury, despite this, the plaintiff has brought a claim blaming the city for Dorothy's death. And they can't just bring this claim, members of the jury, they bring a burden with them. Like Mr. Hill said, they have to prove each and every one of their elements by a preponderance of the evidence. But today, your verdict, it doesn't stop with their burden. Because as the defense, we've elected to take on one of our own. And with this burden, we must prove to you three elements of our own by preponderance of the evidence. First, we must prove it's more likely than not that a great white shark attack was an unforeseeable act of nature. Second, that there was no reasonable action to prevent it. And third, that that unforeseeable act of nature was the cause of Dorothy's death. See, members of the jury, the law says if we meet these elements here today, even if you believe the plaintiff meets their own burden, you must find the city not liable. And we'll meet this burden by showing you three very simple facts. First, it looked like the shark had been caught. Second, based on the available information, it was reasonable to reopen the beach. And third, that the mayor took every reasonable precaution anyway. Let's start with that first fact. It looked like the shark had been caught. Today, you'll hear that the tragedy that brings us to trial, it wasn't the first attack. In fact, just days before, a boy was attacked named Paul. But you'll also hear after he was attacked, a reward was offered for the shark that killed him. And that within days, fishermen returned to the docks of First City with an 11-foot, 1,100-pound tiger shark. You'll hear from the mayor of First City, who will tell you when talking to the expert the plaintiff's calling here today, well, that expert said, yes, tiger sharks, they're man-eaters. This is probably the shark that killed those people. Members of the jury, before ever opening that beach, you'll hear that it looked like the shark had been caught. But that'll bring us to the next simple fact. Based on the information, it was reasonable to reopen the beach. Today, you won't just hear that this city never experienced a shark encounter in its entire history. You won't just hear that the expert the plaintiff called told the mayor the killer shark was probably captured. You'll hear that that same expert told him it was unlikely that there was another shark out there. Members of the jury, that'll bring us to our third simple fact. That even after this shark was captured, even after it looked like the shark had been caught, this mayor, he took every precaution anyway. Today, you'll learn that this mayor, on July 4th, authorized 12 additional police officers to man the beach. He hired 3 trained individuals whose sole job was to look out for sharks. And he told the plaintiff's expert, a shark expert with decades of experience, that he had the authority to do whatever it took to ensure the beach was safe. Members of the jury, at the end of today's trial, it'll be clear that it looked like the shark had been caught. And I'll come back before you and ask you to find the only verdict consistent with the facts and the law. I'll ask you to find First City not liable. Thank you.
Thank you. Plaintiff, call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. We'll be calling Dr. Schott to the stand.
Dr. Schott, you are sworn.
Can I proceed, Your Honor?
Let's wait for defense to show up on screen. There we go. You may proceed.
Good afternoon. Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good afternoon. I'm Dana Schott.
What do you do for work, Dr. Schott?
I'm an oceanographer. I study the oceans and everything within them. I've been doing it for the past 22 years at the Oceanographic Institute.
Can you tell us about your education?
Of course. I started off with my bachelor's and master's, both in marine sciences from Newcastle University. I then crossed the pond to finish up with a PhD in marine biology from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington.
Ma'am, have you ever researched or studied sharks before?
Sharks are my specialty. My doctorate studies actually focused on sharks within marine biology, and I've headed up the Oceanographic Institute's shark research program for the past 10 years. The past 2 decades of my career have been consistent of studying sharks in all the labs with all the best experts around the world.
Your Honor, the plaintiff offers Dr. Schott as an expert in oceanography and sharks the same.
Any objection?
Without objection, Your Honor.
She will be admitted.
Dr. Schott, I want to talk about this case. How did you first get involved with First City?
I was contacted by the city and brought in late June of 2022 to help navigate shark activity in the area, analyze next steps.
Ma'am, were you at First City on July 4th?
Yes, I stayed in First City for a bit. I was there for July 4th of 2022.
Can you tell us what happened on that day?
Yes, I was in a boat on the beach. There was a girl, a 6-year-old, Dorothy, swimming in the ocean with her mum. All of a sudden, there were lots of shouts. There was blood everywhere. Shark got her. I got over. I tried to pull Dorothy into the boat. By the time she got to the hospital, there was a lot of blood. Dorothy was gone.
Your Honor, we'll be screen sharing Exhibit 1, which has already been admitted. Doctor, who's this little girl?
This is a photograph of Dorothy.
And ma'am, I want to talk about what the scene of the beach looked like when she was on it, died. Your Honor, we'll be screen sharing Exhibit 2. What's this?
This is a photograph taken July 4th, 2022, of the beach where Dorothy was killed.
Is it fair and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Has it been changed or altered?
No.
Plaintiff moves Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Without objection, Your Honor.
That'll be admitted.
Doctor, did the city have any warnings that those waters might be unsafe?
Yes. Throughout my time in First City, there were 3 blatant warnings to the city alone.
Let's walk through those warnings one by one. Can you tell us about the first warning to the city?
Yes. It started on June 25th of 2022, when the remains of a young woman who was killed washed up on the beach. That's when I came in.
Did you investigate how she might have died?
Of course, myself as well as the medical examiner there looked at the body and tried to analyze what could have happened.
Your Honor, we'll be screen sharing Exhibit 4, which has already been admitted into evidence. Doctor, what's this document?
This is the police report done by the chief of police in First City, detailing how he found the remains and the next steps, including the medical examiner's conclusions.
What all did this report tell you about a potential shark attack?
Well, I focused on what the medical examiner said. First, that there were sharp force injuries. These were consistent with perhaps a boat propeller or even large bite marks from an animal. The medical examiner goes on to say, the incident was suspicious for a shark attack.
Ma'am, was the city made aware that this incident, this woman dying, could have been a shark attack?
Well, this is a city document. Yes, this is the police report from the chief of police. So all of this information came from the city.
Did the mayor know about it?
Yes, I spoke with the mayor myself. He instructed me to keep this information private, not to mention the sharks to the public. No safety procedures were put in place.
Ma'am, I just want to get this straight. After you told the mayor there might have been a shark in his waters, he did nothing?
That's right.
Oh, ma'am, you mentioned that there was a second
Objection, Your
warning.
Honor. To Rule 602, may I be heard?
You may.
Specifically to the statement, he did nothing after you told him. She can speak to what she saw, observed, or what he specifically told her. But to delve into specifically what he did outside of her scope, she doesn't have the personal knowledge to testify to that. It's inadmissible under Rule 602.
Response.
Your Honor, Dr. Schott is merely testifying based off of what she knows the mayor to have done. There's sufficient foundation on the record for her to say that the mayor did nothing. She instructed her and nobody else to share this information to the public. And furthermore, he didn't put any safety precautions in place. It's well within her rationally based perception and her personal knowledge to testify the mayor didn't do anything.
Response, Your Honor?
Briefly.
If these are just things she physically observed, I would just ask that foundation be laid onto the record. For her to just state that he did nothing without explaining how she knows that, that's a lack of personal knowledge.
Why don't we lay some foundation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, based on what you saw, did the mayor put any safety precautions in place after you warned him that there could be a shark attack?
No, I was specifically brought in to provide guidance to the mayor on what was happening. Although I provided suggestions, the mayor disregarded everything I said. Nothing at the beach changed. It remained open for people to swim in the potentially dangerous waters.
You talked about there being 3 warnings. Let's go ahead and move on to that second one. What exactly happened?
June 29th of 2022, a young boy, 12 years old, was attacked by a shark and killed.
Your Honor, we'll be screen sharing Exhibit 5. Doctor, what's this?
This is a photograph of the raft the 12-year-old boy was on. Oh, you can see the bite mark.
Is it fair and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Has it been changed or altered?
No.
Plaintiff moves 5 into evidence.
Without objection, Your Honor, we believe all foundation has been laid.
That's admitted.
Doctor, did you find any more evidence that that little boy, that he did get killed by a shark?
I was at the beach myself when it happened. You could hear the shouts of sharks. I could see the fins of a shark in the water right next to the boy. The fin, combined with the amount of blood and the bite mark in the raft, was clearly consistent with a shark attack.
Did the city know that a shark ate a little boy on their own beach?
Yes, it was a very public manner, and the chief of police was with me at the beach when it happened.
Well, what did the city do in response to another person dying on their beach?
They closed the beach for 2.5 days, but I was still concerned.
Did you let those concerns be known to the mayor?
Of course. I had many concerns that there was still a shark out there in the water. I provided the mayor with another warning, that third warning, that there still could have been that shark. I provided statistics, told him everything I knew, and said to close the beach.
I want to talk about those statistics. Your Honor, we'll be screen sharing Exhibit 3, and this is also a document that's been pre-admitted. Ma'am, what did those statistics tell us?
Well, this focuses on the shark incidents that have happened in California. This is up to right before the incident with Dorothy happened. You can see here, the most important thing I focused on, highlighted to the mayor. All fatalities involved great white sharks. Never before had any other kind of shark killed anybody on record. I was worried that there was still a great white shark, given that there had been a fatality at the beach.
Did you tell the mayor that you were worried that there could still be a great white shark in the beach?
Of course, I provided these statistics. I told him everything I knew. I said, we need to close these beaches. But that didn't happen.
What did the mayor say when you told him that there still might be a great white shark inside of the beach?
The mayor told me, we're a summer town. We need summer dollars. If we close the beach, we're finished.
So, ma'am, what happened on the very next day after the mayor said that he intended to leave the beach open despite being warned about a great white shark?
6-year-old girl, she died.
How did that 6-year-old girl die, ma'am?
A great white shark.
Thank you. Your Honor, I haven't gotten anything further.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to start off by discussing something you didn't mention much on direct examination. You know that a tiger shark was caught in First City, right?
No, I know a tiger shark was caught. I don't know if it was caught in First City.
All right, well, let's take a step back, man. You mentioned that you witnessed an attack on June 29th, right?
That's right, of a 12-year-old boy.
And just to be clear, this was the first confirmed shark attack in First City in its entire history, right?
As far as I know, yes, although I had concerns that the attack 4 days earlier had also been a shark incident.
I understand that, Doctor. But to be clear, this attack was the first confirmed shark attack, right?
That's right.
And like you mentioned, after this first confirmed shark attack, well, the beaches were closed.
Very shortly, yes.
That's right. You said for 2.5 days, right?
That's right. For the remainder of the day after the boy died and for the following days.
Well, let's talk about why it was exactly 2.5 days. Because, Doctor, you know that after that 2.5 days, well, that tiger shark was caught, right?
There was a tiger shark caught. However, the details of the catching are unclear.
I understand that, Doctor, but to be clear, that's when the tiger shark was caught, right?
That's right.
Some fishermen returned just days after the attack with an 1,100-pound tiger shark, right?
They did.
They brought it up to the docks of First City.
They did.
And you believe that it was possible this shark was the one causing those fatalities, right?
I thought there was a chance.
Was that a yes, it was possible?
Possible but unlikely, yes.
Well, a tiger shark, they're a man-eating shark, right?
That's right, though there have been no fatalities recorded in California.
So, Doctor, you told the mayor it was possible this shark was the one who committed those acts, right?
I told the mayor it was unlikely, but we could confirm by doing an autopsy. The mayor told
Doctor,
me...
was that a yes? You told the mayor it was possible this shark was responsible, yes or no?
No, I said it was unlikely, but yes, possible.
All right, Doctor. Well, after you told the mayor that it was possible, and only after this shark was captured, that's when the beaches reopened, right?
That's right. I told the mayor not to open the beaches, and he did.
After the shark was captured, right?
After a shark was captured, yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about something you said on direct examination. You said it about 3 times. I told him everything I knew. Do you remember saying that?
Yes,
That's what you told to the mayor. You told him everything you knew, right?
of course.
I want to discuss what everything you knew was. Because after this tiger shark was captured, you weren't convinced that there wasn't another shark, right?
No, I was concerned due to the lack of tiger shark fatalities, as well as other evidence I found.
So you went out searching that very next day, right?
I did with the chief of police.
And what you found was an abandoned boat.
That's right,
You'd recognize a picture of that abandoned boat you found if I were to show it to you.
of course.
We'll now be screen sharing defense's proposed exhibit set. Doctor, these are pictures of that boat you found, right?
That's right. The top is the picture of the boat. The second is a picture we took of damage to the boat.
This is a fair and accurate copy.
Yes, sir.
It hasn't been changed or altered in any way.
No.
The defense moves to admit exhibit 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
That's admitted.
Now, doctor, you believed that this shipwreck, it was a sign of a shark attack, right?
That's right. Not just a shark attack. I believed it was a great white shark.
And to be clear, these are the only 2 pictures you took.
That's right, yes.
And you brought these 2 pictures to the mayor,
Yes, this is one of the things I brought.
along with those statistics you mentioned,
That's right.
which showed that there had only been 215 incidents with a shark in the entire state of California over the last 72 years, right?
That's right. And all fatalities were great whites.
So, doctor, what else did you bring in?
Well, I explained through my 22 years of oceanographic experience that a feeding ground for a shark, well, that can cause problems. The shark will come back as long as there's prey, or it could even bring more sharks with it if they know it's a feeding site. The only way to prevent that is to close the beaches.
Doctor, I can clarify my question. The 2 pieces of actual evidence you brought to the mayor were those 2 blurry photos we just looked at and those statistics, right?
That's what I had on paper, yes.
All right, doctor. Well, let's talk about what the mayor did in response. Because you'd agree, even though those beaches were kept open, the mayor, he authorized precautions, right?
Yes,
You watched him authorize 16 additional police officers to work the beach that next day.
that's right.
You know, he hired 3 additional shark spotters, right?
That's right.
These shark spotters are there only to search the water for sharks and spot them in time, right?
To spot them, yes.
The chief of police was working on the beach on July 4th, right?
Yes,
You were patrolling the ocean in your boat.
I was.
And all of you, including the police officers that were already working the beach, were in constant communication, right?
We were over the telephone.
All to prevent another shark attack from happening.
Yes. Unfortunately, that was not enough.
Doctor, to be clear, the mayor told you short of closing the beach, you had his authority to do whatever it took to keep the beach safe, right?
That's right. But I said the only thing that's safe is to close the beaches.
Was that a yes to my question? He told you you had the authority to do whatever else it takes to keep the beach safe.
Yes, he told me I could do anything other than closing the beach, which was the only safe option.
Thank you for your time, doctor. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Will there be any redirect for this witness?
No redirect, Your Honor. Dr. Schott can step down.
Thank you, Dr. Schott. Any further witnesses from the plaintiff?
No further witnesses, Your Honor. With this, the plaintiff rests his case in chief.
All right. Defense, do you have a case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor. May we call our first witness?
You may.
Defense calls Chris Weems.
Mr. Weems, you are sworn, and you may begin whenever ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you please introduce yourself, spelling your last name for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Chris Weems. Weems is spelled W-E-E-M-S.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Weems?
Well, I'm the mayor of First City.
Could you tell the members of the jury about First City?
Absolutely. We're a small beach town located in Southern California with about 4,000 residents. We are a tourist city, so we've got a lot of people that come in from all over to stay at our beaches during the summertime.
Sir, I want to focus on your experiences as the mayor leading up to the attack of Dorothy Ketchapali. Starting on June 25th, could you tell the jury about that day?
Absolutely. The morning of June 25th, I received a call from our chief of police. He let me know that they had found a body of a woman that had washed up on shore.
Were you ever made aware what the cause of death for this woman was?
It's unclear. The investigation and results are detailed in a police report that the chief filed a couple days after that she was found.
Your Honor, will now be screen sharing previously admitted Exhibit 4. All right, Mr. Weems, what are we looking at here?
This is the police report that the chief of police filed.
And what did the police report say the cause of death was?
Well, it says right here that in the totality, it's undetermined, but the medical examiner and police believed it was a possible boating accident. Further details show that our medical examiner, well, at first he might have believed that it could have been a shark attack, but upon further study and investigation, found that it was more likely to be caused by a boat's propeller. Now, regardless, we called in a shark expert to make sure, and the shark expert's results were inconclusive.
Sir, did you close the beach down after the incident on June 25th?
No. I mean, with the information that we had, I trusted the medical examiner. So we didn't close the beach down. With the medical examiner saying it was a boating accident and the shark expert not having any certainty that it was a shark, I didn't close the beach. We had no reason to.
Sir, are you familiar with what happened on July 1st?
I am. There was a confirmed shark attack. A 12-year-old boy named Paul was attacked and killed.
Sir, was this the first confirmed shark attack?
It was the first confirmed shark attack in our city's entire history.
So, Mayor Weems, after the first confirmed shark attack in your city's history, what did you do?
I did what any reasonable person would do, and I closed the beaches down.
Sir, how long did you close the beaches?
The beaches were closed between July 29th or June 29th and July 1st.
Hold on a second, sir. If you had just experienced the first confirmed shark attack in your city's history, why on earth would you only close the beaches for 2.5 days?
On July 1st, a 11-foot, 1,100-pound tiger shark was caught. And with that massive shark caught, I believed it was safe to reopen the beach.
Well, sir, have you been present throughout trial today?
I have.
Did you see the plaintiff's expert just testify before you?
I did.
Were they present when you looked at this shark?
They were.
And what did the plaintiff's expert say as you were present for the shark?
As we looked at that shark, the shark expert told me that tiger sharks are man-eaters and that this was probably the shark that killed those 2 people.
Objection, Your Honor, to hearsay.
Response, Your Honor?
Let's hear from plaintiff counsel first.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, they're using this out-of-court statement from a medical examiner to show that this shark that they caught possibly was the tiger shark. That's an out-of-court statement being used for its truth value.
Defense.
Response, Your Honor? Yes, Your Honor. Under Rule 801, in order for a statement to be considered hearsay, it must be used to prove the truth of the matter asserted within that statement. Now, this isn't a statement from a medical examiner. It's a statement from the plaintiff's own expert witness. They argued when they were on the stand that they put this mayor on notice of certain dangers. This is being used to show the actual notice this mayor was put on, not whether or not this statement made was actually true.
Response.
Your Honor, if opposing counsel wanted statements from that expert about what they said to the mayor, they should have asked that expert when they were on the stand. At this point, they're simply trying to backdoor them into evidence through this witness. That's hearsay, Your Honor.
Defense last word if you want it.
Yes, Your Honor. Like I said, this isn't being used to prove any truth of the matter, sir. No one in court today is arguing that that tiger shark was responsible. This only matters the subsequent action of the mayor, of he heard from this expert on sharks that this was probably the killer shark that was now captured and dead. And only after hearing that did he reopen the beaches. This goes to subsequent action and notice, not truth.
I'm going to admit the statement and issue a limiting instruction to the jury. Plaintiff, feel free to re-raise that objection if you feel that defense is not abiding by that instruction and using it for the truth of the matter.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Weems, I'll ask you that question again. What did the plaintiff's expert say after this tiger shark was dead on the dock in front of him?
The shark expert told me that tiger sharks are man-eaters, and this is probably the shark that killed those two people.
So after you were told by an expert on sharks that this was probably the killer shark, what did you do?
I trusted the expert, and if the killer shark was dead, I reopened the beaches.
All right, sir. I now want to discuss if reopening the beaches was a reasonable decision based on what you knew. Sir, did you have any other reason to believe there was another shark out there after the tiger shark was caught?
No, I mean, after the tiger shark was caught, the expert told me that it was unlikely that there was another shark in the water.
Well, sir, did you hear the expert just a moment ago say that they told you there was a great white in the water?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell the members of the jury when they told you that?
They told me after they had found a boat that was abandoned in the water, and then they said that they had found a shark tooth in the hull of a boat.
Would you recognize pictures of that boat they showed you if I were to show it to you?
I would.
We're now screen sharing previously admitted Exhibit 7. Your Honor, what has not yet been admitted is what has been previously admitted. Apologies, Your Honor. Mr. Weems, what are we looking at here?
This is the picture of a boat that the expert showed me.
Sir, did the expert tell you what that damage was when they showed you these pictures?
They said it was a hole in the boat.
Did they tell you how long the boat had been there?
No.
Sir, did they tell you for sure that this was caused by a shark attack?
No.
So when they came to you with these two pictures, did they bring any other evidence there was another shark?
They said they found a tooth.
Did you see this tooth?
Nope. They said that they dropped the tooth and it fell deep into the ocean.
All right, sir. After you were shown these pictures and heard about a tooth you couldn't see, did you then close the beaches?
No, I had no reason to. At the time, the killer shark was dead. The only other, I didn't have any other proof that there was a shark. There were no pictures. There was no other information that told me that there was another shark in the water.
Sir, I want to discuss what you did instead. Did you take any precautions even after this tiger shark was captured?
Absolutely. We got dozens of police officers to patrol the beach. We got 3 dedicated shark spotters. I even had the expert herself patrol the waters to make sure people were safe.
Sir, would you have left the beaches open if you knew there was another shark in the water?
No, if I knew that there was a shark in the water, I never would have let anyone go back on that beach.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Weems, you would agree with me. If you had just closed that beach down, Dorothy would still be alive, wouldn't she?
That's right, sir.
Sir, I want to talk about the decision that you made, why you actually made it. Because isn't it true that your city, most of its revenue, it runs on tourism?
That's right. As a tourist town, that is true.
Sir, and those tourists, they're attracted to the beach.
Some of them, yes. I can't speak for all of them, but a beach is a big place for vacation.
Sir, you think if you'd close that beach down, you'd lose up to $100,000?
We certainly could. We had to shut the beach down regardless, so it didn't matter. And to keep people safe, I was willing to make that sacrifice.
So, sir, on July 3rd, you thought it would be bad for your city's economy to leave that beach open, didn't you? To close that beach, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can you rephrase your question? I don't know if you got to finish exactly what you meant.
You thought that it would be bad for your city's economy if you closed that beach on July 4th, didn't you?
I mean, as a tourist town that relies on the revenue from tourists, I mean, absolutely, that's true.
Sir, I want to talk about whether or not you were warned to leave that beach closed. Because, sir, you remember on July 25th, June 25th, there was a dead body that washed up on your shore.
Yes, that's right. A young lady had been caught in a boat propeller.
And like you said, you hired an oceanographer to help determine how that lady died.
Yes, that's right. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't a shark because we had never seen one before.
That oceanographer told you that could have been a shark. We should close the beaches until we know for certain.
Not exactly. She told us that she wasn't sure if it was more likely than not that it was a shark. She wasn't certain.
That's a yes to my question. She said we should close the beaches until we know for sure that it wasn't a shark attack.
That's right. She did suggest to close the beaches down, but at that point, we believed that it was a boat propeller that had killed that young lady.
So, sir, you didn't tell that expert, yeah, we're going to hire some people to get to the bottom of all this and see if there's a shark in those waters. You didn't say that, did you?
No, she couldn't tell us if there was a shark in the water at the time either.
Sir, you suppressed that information from the public, didn't you?
No.
Sir, is it your testimony today that you didn't make sure the public didn't find out that this girl died from a shark?
We believe that a boat propeller had killed this young lady, not a shark.
Sir, regardless of what you think, you didn't let the public know anything about that incident, did you?
Well, I mean, the young woman had died. It wasn't necessarily public information at the time.
Sir, that was of your own accord. You didn't want that information to get out.
It wasn't necessary to get out to the public. She had passed away from what we thought was a boat propeller accident, and the police were handling the rest.
Okay, sir. So like you said, you made the decision to leave the beaches open.
Yes, that's right, because we believe she had been killed by a boat propeller.
That was a fatal decision, wasn't it?
I suppose I don't know what you mean.
Sir, when you made the decision to leave those beaches open, just days later, a little boy died from a shark.
That's right. A little boy, he's actually was in my daughter's class. She's 12 years old, and so is he, and he was at the beach that day, and he lost his life.
But you think that you caught the real shark.
Yeah, absolutely. When they caught that 11-foot long, 1,100-pound man-eating shark, and the expert told me that was probably the one that had caused the death, I trusted the expert.
The expert told you that they could cut that shark open to see if the little boy's body was still inside of it.
The expert told me they wanted to cut the shark open right in front of everyone and spill that little boy's body onto the dock. I told her no. That was insane. I wasn't about to desecrate that little boy's body.
Sir, she wanted to be sure that that shark was the one that killed that boy before she made any opinions, and you told her no.
Yes, I told her she couldn't cut that shark open on the dock with everyone around. It was ridiculous. She wasn't even
Then,
certain that it would tell us if that was the shark. She had no idea. She
well,
told me herself.
sir, just a couple of days later, that expert brought you some statistics.
Yes, she did. She brought me a statistics sheet for the entire state of California over 72 years, I think.
Sir, you know, in over 70 years, there's never been a man-eating tiger shark in its history.
Uh, that's what the statistics sheet said, but that doesn't mean that they don't eat people.
So, sir, that expert told you, hey, we think a great white shark still might be out there.
She said there could be, I think, and that wasn't enough to convince me, no.
Sir, it wasn't just her recommending that you close the beach. Your own chief of police insisted that you guys close that beach until you could be sure that there were no sharks in that water.
He did. That is correct.
You said that's not going to be best for business.
I said there wasn't any physical proof that there was another shark in the water. The expert had already told me it was unlikely that there would be another shark, that we had probably caught the right shark. I trusted the expert's initial opinion.
Despite the chief of police telling you that there might have been a shark in that water, you're saying you didn't believe it?
They brought me a picture of a beat up boat. I mean, I never even saw the boat in person. They couldn't tell me where the hole had come from, and they didn't have any physical proof. They didn't even have the tooth. I
This,
couldn't trust and make decisions without proof of those things.
sir, I know that you're saying you didn't think that there was a shark in those waters, but you still hired people to look out for sharks?
That's right. The ocean's a really big place, and if one shark swam into our water, another shark could do the same. So, in order to take preventative and proactive measures, I hired shark spotters. I had the expert out there looking in case they saw one, just in case something happened.
So when you decided to leave that beach open, even though you were warned that there were sharks, Dorothy died.
She did, despite every preventative measure we took. Another shark came into our waters and attacked Dorothy.
You took every preventative measure except for the one that the expert told you to close the beach down.
That's right.
Nothing further.
Any redirect from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Sir, why did you take those preventative measures?
Just in case another shark swam into our waters, to make sure that people were safe just in case. Because if it happened once, it might be able to happen again. And I never want another parent to have to go through that.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further, Your Honor. At this time, I would ask, barring any recross, that Mr. Weems be excused.
Any recross?
There'll be no recross, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused, Mr. Weems. Thank you.
At this time, the defense rests their case in chief.
All right, are we good to head straight into closings, or would you like a short break?
Your Honor, if we could take just 30 seconds to fix up some technology.
Sure, why don't you go ahead and set yourselves up then for closing, and then let me know when you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Toast. Okay.
Trusted the expert.
Plan if
Didn't
you've
you-
got a hot mic, watch out.
Oh, the mic.
Are we ready to proceed to closings? I think you're muted now.
May it please the court? They were warned about sharks, but they still let her swim. After this trial, whether it goes my way or not, I'll still get to go home. And Mr. Tefft, he'll still get to go home too. As will the judge, and as will each and every one of you members of the jury. This girl, Dorothy, she'll never get to go home again. She'll never get to experience a first prom. She'll never get to talk to her mom about her first heartbreak. She'll never get to experience the feeling of having children of her own. The defendant took that away from her. They were warned about sharks, but they still let her swim. And that, members of the jury, is why we've sued the defendant. Like I told you earlier, we just had to prove a couple of things by a preponderance of the evidence, which means just a little bit more likely than not. We had to show you that those waters were dangerous, that the city knew or should have known, and that because those waters were dangerous, because there were great white sharks in it, Dorothy died. And members of the jury, to really show you how we met our burden today, I want to walk through the verdict form, the one that you're going to get on how to decide this case. So let's go through it together. The first question, did we prove that First City knew or should have known about a dangerous condition? You learned today that that answer is yes. Take the defendant at his own word. Yeah, the experts might have told me that there were great white sharks in the water. So did my own chief of police department. But I still didn't have enough evidence. I thought I caught the real shark. Members of the jury, is he serious? Did you hear about all of the evidence that surrounded the shark that they caught? For one, they couldn't confirm whether or not the boy was inside of it. That expert told the defendant, hey, maybe we can check and see, be certain. We can cut it open and see if the little boy's in there. Defendant says, no, I think I'll be good. The expert says, well, these statistics, they make it dang near impossible to prove that that was a tiger shark that killed that little boy. Defendant still says that he's certain that he caught the real shark, that he has no reason to believe that there was a dangerous situation going on in those waters. Despite what he might tell you, his actions, they will speak 1,000 times louder than any of his words ever could. Because the question I want you to consider, if he really didn't think that there were sharks in that water, why would he hire a squad of people to try and check for sharks inside of it? Members of the jury, those are actions that only make sense if he thought that there were sharks in that water. So we're going to ask that you check yes for question number 1. That'll bring us to that second question that you have to answer. Did we prove that the dangerous condition of First City was the proximate cause of Dorothy's death? As the judge will tell you in just a moment, that's a pretty straightforward term. All it means is that the dangerous condition, the waters, that they contributed materially to Dorothy's death. Members of the jury, that's practically undisputed. You see, nobody is going to disagree that Dorothy died in First City Beach and that inside of First City Beach was the shark that killed Dorothy. So we're going to ask that you check yes for question number 2. And that should be the end of this case. But the defense says that they did nothing wrong. They're trying to tell you that it was just an act of nature. Members of the jury, that would mean that they had absolutely no idea that there could have been a great white shark in that water. That would mean that they didn't have any clue, any evidence that suggested that. That's just not what the evidence showed you today. You heard that that expert presented the mayor with a boat that was chomped out of, said that she found shark teeth. And it wasn't just this expert. His own chief of police warned him that there could be dangerous sharks in that water. But he said no. He said he's not going to close the beach down. And perhaps this is the most tragic fact in this case, the reason why the mayor didn't close down the beach. Take him at his word. We're a summer town. We need summer dollars. If we close the beaches, we're going to be finished. And members of the jury, it was in that moment that the defendant became responsible for Dorothy's death. It was in that moment that he chose to prioritize the city's profits over the protection of its citizens, when he chose to put dollars over Dorothy. He was warned that there were sharks in that water, but he still let her swim. So we're going to ask that you find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Defense.
Yes, Your Honor. It looked like the shark had been caught. See, today, members of the jury were brought here because of a terrible tragedy. We're here because a little girl lost her life due to the unforeseeable actions of nature. It's a tragedy that that little girl won't be going home. It's a tragedy that a mother lost her daughter. But members of the jury, it's a tragedy caused not by the city, by the actions of nature. While this case might be weighted with emotion, as the judge will explain to you, it's your job to separate the emotion from the evidence. Because when you're back in that deliberation room, right next to that verdict form Mr. Hill just showed you, you'll have a series of jury instructions. They'll look just like this. And the very first jury instruction that you'll read is that you should determine the case, the facts from the evidence and the law, not sympathy. So as difficult as it may be, members of the jury, that's what I want to do now, is separate the emotion in this case from the facts and the law. Because the truth is, members of the jury, nature has actions that are unforeseeable, even when people act reasonably. When the plaintiff brought this suit, they took on a burden of proof to prove each and every element, to prove that the city was the one who acted unreasonably. Members of the jury, that's not what you heard in trial today. Because what the evidence actually showed is it looked like that shark had been caught. This city's never so much as seen a shark since their history started. So after a shark attack, when a man-eating 1,100-pound shark is caught and laid out on their dock, the mayor, as a reasonable person, believes the shark had been caught. See, the plaintiff's story doesn't make any sense when you actually think of it. They're telling you that this city, it needed tourism money so badly they weren't willing to close the beaches. But what you heard is the one time they actually had a confirmed shark in the water, he closed them without a second thought, like a reasonable person would. He only reopened the city beach after an expert in sharks told him it's unlikely there's any other shark. This is the shark. And since the killer shark had been caught, members of the jury, then and only then did he open up those beaches. But see, they weren't the only ones with a burden here today. I'm going to show you that that verdict form you'll have in front of you one more time. See, this verdict form makes it really simple what your job is here today. Using only the facts and the evidence, it's your job to determine if the plaintiff met their burden, and if they did, if either of these questions are true. If we have proven here today that our actions to protect against the risk of injury were reasonable, then the plaintiff has failed here today. And members of the jury, you heard today that reopening that beach, it was reasonable. Because to this mayor, based on the information they had, it looked like the shark had been caught. But members of the jury, you also heard about our third simple fact here today. That the mayor took every reasonable precaution just in case. That he hired police officers, that he hired shark spotters, that he had a boat patrolling, and he told an expert to do whatever it took to keep the beach safe. Mr. Hill just told you, why would a person try to prevent a shark attack if they didn't know for absolute certain there was a shark in the water? Members of the jury, that doesn't make any sense. Even if there was no shark in the water, as we learned in this case, nature is unforeseeable. Terrible tragedies happen, and members of the jury, this mayor took every reasonable precaution to prevent another shark attack happening anyway. Even when it looked like the shark had been caught. But see, that wasn't our only way to prevail here today. Because that very next question, members of the jury, says, did First City prove that Dorothy Cacciapolli's death was proximately caused by an act of nature? Members of the jury, the answer to this question is again, yes. There was 2 sharks infested waters in a town that had never seen a shark in its history. After it looked like the shark had been caught, it was reasonable to reopen those beaches until a terrible act of nature happened. Members of the jury, throughout today's case, Mr. Hill has asked one question over and over and over again, and it's if you would have closed those beaches, Dorothy would still be alive. And the truth is, this is a tragic question with a tragic answer. But when it comes to determining the facts and the law, we don't have the benefit of hindsight. It's your job to determine not if those beaches should have been closed, knowing what you know now. It's to determine based on the facts given to that mayor if he acted reasonably, and the answer is yes. Because when it looked like the shark had been caught, and he had no real evidence to see that there was another shark out there, this mayor still took every precaution. Still hired more people, still spent more money, still told an expert on sharks with 2 decades of experience to do whatever it takes to keep the people safe. But no matter what reasonable actions we take, members of the jury, can't predict unforeseeable acts of nature, which this was. We've met our burden. Find First City not liable. Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. Opposing counsel just stood up here and said that the mayor was being reasonable. After he was warned that there could be great white sharks in his waters, all he did was send a couple of guys with binoculars to look over the beach. And members of the jury, think about it like this. If a police officer warns you that there could be a dangerous killer in the local park, are you just going to send little Johnny across the street and just watch him with a telescope? No, members of the jury, it would not be reasonable to send the kid there at all until you have evidence that there is no killer. The same way, if an expert in marine biology, your own chief of police, warns you that there could be a great white shark in those waters, it doesn't matter if you send 1,000 people to look after them. The only reasonable decision is to confirm that there's no shark and don't let people swim. And then opposing counsel wants to tell you, well, this whole thing, it just slipped right under our nose. We had no idea it was going to happen. Members of the jury, they racked up dead body after dead body. That expert warned him over and over again that there could still be a shark in those waters. You think after the first time, the mayor would listen, but he didn't. And after the second time, after confronted with real evidence, he made the decision to leave those beaches open, even though the experts warned him that there were sharks in those waters. He still let them swim. And now a girl is dead because of it. Hold them accountable and find them liable. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. That was a wonderful round. At this point in the trial, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask my co-judges to submit their ballots and then let me know. I'll hear back when I have the all clear, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we've got all the ballots. I would love if my co-judges, if you want to turn your cameras on, we'll do maybe a little bit of feedback. What we've been asked to do is if you could give like your favorite moment from trial and then one suggestion for each competitor if they advance, just keep it brief and then we'll get to the results afterward. So why don't we start, Ben, if you want to go.
Yeah, I can go first. Let me see. For Anthony, I think the the best moment in trial I had was during your close, I thought. I think you made the best point in the trial, which is that if this mayor really didn't think that there was a shark in the water anymore, why did they still implement some version of restrictions? I thought it was an excellent point. I thought you made it well and like kind of touched on it in your cross and then brought it home on your close. And I think those are like the big moments that are really good for the playing tournament because you're kind of like held back by Zoom a little bit because the judges can't see you move. One thing that I would change going forward is I would not take a screenshot of the opposing side's expert and put them on a demo. It just feels a little bit unprofessional, and I think it took away from some really really strong points that you made in your closing, and it just seemed a little silly. I think you can just say what they said. You don't necessarily have to put a picture of them up on the demo, but other than that, I thought the close was excellent. And then Barrett, I think you have an excellent base level tone of advocacy. I think you're very confident. I think you come off clean. I would take moments to deviate from that tone throughout the trial, whether that be in closing or opening or cross. Get really excited or get really quiet because I think that's what your tone was missing. Again, the base tone is really excellent, but if you show some variance from it, I think you can really highlight some of the more salient points of your theory. But congratulations to both of you. I think you're both excellent advocates, and I look forward to seeing who moves on.
Jade, how about you?
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, okay. This was a really interesting trial and it was very fun to watch. So thank you both. I thought it was really close. So judging was difficult for me, but I will give the feedback. I think Anthony, I loved your cross. I thought it was super great. The points you made was very clear to follow and your tone was really good throughout. I liked your witness control. I think the feedback would be like it's just like a tweak to make your witness control better, but like knowing which points to stick on and which points to stick off and like kind of getting that. But I really enjoyed your cross. Barrett, I thought you were very responsive, which is really good. I loved your objections, like restating the rule, letting us know where we're at. And I think the feedback I would also give for you is the signposting and the headers, which is something we all do. Like I was trained to do that too. Some of them I felt were argumentative, and you didn't get objected to it, which is like good for you. But as a judge, like I noticed that some signposts felt like objectionable or a little too argumentative. So I would just watch those in the next round. But overall, this was a really great trial. And I wanted to say I was like, I understood the case, I understood the timelines. So you both did a really good job carrying the narrative. So thank you.
Glad to see Mikey's on camera now. Mikey, what do you got to say?
I will say my video was being disabled. That was not my choice. But this was such a lovely trial. Thank you so much for letting me judge. I think just really for the plaintiff, I'll start. I felt like your opening was incredibly clear. I think that's something in mock trial that we really can take for granted, but like even as a judge early in the morning, I really felt like I walked away from it knowing exactly where you were going, and you were really consistent with emphasizing the same points throughout your direct and your cross, and I just really appreciated it. You made it so easy. A change going forward, particularly with the speeches, I think you have a little bit of the mock trial voice where sometimes you'll do the thing where you're starting to talk really quickly to create the excitement. And I think that I could tell it wasn't your most natural tone. And I think that your natural voice sounds great. And I could hear that more on the exams. So I would say lean into that more. Because it made me trust you more when you were sounding like, I think, more of your real self. For the defense, I thought that your best moment was on your direct when you asked the mayor why he only kept the beach closed for 2.5 days. That was the exact question that I wanted to know as a juror. And I think it's really good when you make the juror feel connected to you. You're reading their mind. That was really compelling for me. Then a change going forward, especially with an opponent who has such an expressive and like charismatic voice, I think would try to be a little bit like Ben's comment, just adding in a little bit more energy and like tonal fluctuations, because you are such a strong speaker, and I just wanted to feel a little bit more passion. But yeah, you both were amazing, so thank you.
All right, so then I will go. So in terms of favorite moments, plaintiff, I loved your cross-examination of the mayor. I thought that he was a tough witness and he was fighting you and giving you like plausible explanations to a lot of the things that you were asking, but you did a really good job of throwing tough question after tough question. It was well written, and your demeanor the whole time was very good for me. And for the defense, I loved that your handle on evidence was strong. I appreciated the hearsay response, and that was exactly the response I wanted from you in the end, that it was going to go to subsequent action, and you followed right up with subsequent action. So good job there. For one thing that I would say for you for changing going forward, echoing a little bit what of my co-jurors have been saying, it's actually inverse for the both of you. Plaintiff, you had a lot of great moments to be passionate, righteous, showy, and I would love to see you be more casual or conversational. I saw some of this in your closing, and the whole time in your rebuttal, it was like purely just you. It wasn't like amped, it wasn't scripted, and I love that. So I would like to see that. You could take a moment when you're talking about Dorothy to be softer, sadder, to be more emotional about that, and get some really good contrast in that way. And in the inverse for you, defense, I think you want a little bit of contrast the other way around. You want more variation in your presentation because you have a great controlled, matter-of-fact presentation, and that will stand out a lot better when you can contrast with a moment that's more intense. You got a couple times to it, like close in your closing, but I'd love to see you have more fun with it and push it. Okay. So thank you both for a fantastic round. It was close, and in fact, the results were split. The winner going on to the next part of the trial will be Barrett Tefft. Congratulations, Barrett. Okay, so you will be heading to the other Zoom link for a coin toss for both sides. But again, I want to say congratulations for both of you for getting this far. Making it to the play-in is not by any means a small feat. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you guys all for judging, and thank you for a great round, Anthony.
Thank you. You're a great team, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job, both of you.
Good job, both of you.